The world of modern celebrity and royal transition often presents a glittering facade, yet beneath the surface of high society lies a complex web of shifting allegiances, public scrutiny, and profound reputational challenges that captured global attention as the summer of 2026 began. To fully comprehend the dramatic shifts occurring across the Atlantic, one must look closely at how the intersection of media commentary, public expectation, and institutional pressure reshapes the lives of those who once stood at the absolute pinnacle of traditional monarchy. For decades, the public has consumed stories of royal duty and privilege, but the current landscape reflects an entirely different reality. A reality where the modern media apparatus acts as both a mirror and a judge for figures trying to redefine their identities outside the comforting walls of ancient institutions. As we prepare to dive deep into these developing narratives, examining the stark contrasts between multi-million-dollar lifestyle ventures and serious global controversies, we invite you to become a permanent part of our community by subscribing to this channel, ensuring you never miss the detailed investigative breakdowns and exclusive commentary that shed light on the world's most influential personalities. The fascination with these figures does not merely stem from their titles, but from the human drama of their choices, the contrast between their stated ideals and the complex realities of their commercial and philanthropic endeavors. Over the past several years, the transition of prominent public figures from structured state roles to independent global entities has created an entirely new genre of public discourse, one where every statement, every commercial launch, and every charitable association is analyzed under a microscopic lens by an increasingly cynical global audience. This investigative journey begins not in the quiet corridors of London palaces, but in the fast-paced, high-stakes media environments of North America, where broadcasters and commentators analyze the fluctuating fortunes of high-profile expatriates who find themselves constantly balancing public relations crises with ambitious commercial aspirations. The atmosphere surrounding these figures has grown increasingly tense, characterized by a growing disconnect between the polished imagery presented by public relations teams and the harsh criticisms leveled by traditional loyalists and independent observers alike. To understand the gravity of the situation, one must look at the cumulative effect of multiple controversies, where issues ranging from environmental consistency to the transparency of international charities have begun to form a challenging pattern that threatens the very foundations of these newly constructed global brands. As summer temperatures rise, so does the intensity of the scrutiny, creating a volatile environment where even routine public appearances or business announcements can trigger a wave of intense debate and critical analysis across traditional television networks and digital media platforms. The narrative is no longer just about a departure from a traditional lifestyle, but about the grueling, day-to-day struggle to maintain relevance, credibility, and commercial viability in a market that demands absolute transparency and consistency from its icons. The unfolding events serve as a powerful reminder of how quickly public perception can shift, turning celebrated figures into subjects of intense skepticism when their actions are perceived to diverge from the high moral standards they frequently advocate on global stages. Throughout this opening exploration, the goal is to set the stage for a comprehensive analysis of these interconnected stories, establishing the atmospheric tension and the complex media dynamics that define the current moment, and without prematurely revealing the specific operational details or legal challenges that will form the core of our subsequent investigation. The sheer volume of commentary generated in recent days highlights a broader cultural phenomenon, a collective obsession with the mechanics of fame, accountability, and the difficult art of personal rebranding in the modern digital age. Observers note that the strategies employed by modern public figures often involve a delicate balance of personal narrative and commercial enterprise. A combination that can yield spectacular financial rewards, but also exposes the individuals to unprecedented levels of personal and professional vulnerability when things do not go as planned. This vulnerability is magnified when the individuals in question possess a historical connection to ancient traditions, as the public inevitably measures their contemporary market-driven actions against the historical standards of institutional dignity and selfless public service. The resulting friction creates a continuous stream of media narratives, each one contributing to a larger, more complex portrait of high society figures navigating the treacherous waters of independent global prominence. As we trace the developments across different geographical locations, from the media studios of major cities to the exclusive enclaves of the American Southwest, the underlying tension remains remarkably consistent, pointing toward a looming reckoning for brands built on the fragile foundation of contemporary celebrity culture. The intricate relationship between public figures and the media outlets that cover them has reached a critical juncture, where the playful banter of morning television frequently serves as a prelude to deeply serious discussions about institutional integrity and the ethical responsibilities of global activists. This specific broadcasting dynamic underscores the gravity of the topics at hand, demonstrating that behind the light-hearted interactions of commentators lies a serious commitment to dissecting the actions of those who wield significant cultural influence. The evolving story challenges the audience to look beyond the immediate headlines, encouraging a deeper examination of the structural factors that allow certain narratives to gain momentum while others are quietly managed behind closed doors by sophisticated communications teams. By examining these patterns, viewers can begin to appreciate the scale of the challenges facing these individuals. Challenges that extend far beyond simple public relations missteps to encompass fundamental questions about purpose, authenticity, and the true cost of operating in the hyper-visible arena of global celebrity activism. The anticipation building around these issues suggests that the public is no longer satisfied with superficial reassurances, demanding instead a rigorous evaluation of the tangible impacts and ethical consistencies of the initiatives led by these prominent figures. This growing demand for accountability sets the tone for a fascinating exploration of modern prominence, illustrating the heavy burden carried by those who choose to position themselves as leaders of thought and progress on the world stage, while simultaneously participating in the highly competitive world of international commerce and media production. The quiet tension surrounding these public figures shattered completely as serious institutional challenges and specific operational controversies came to light, exposing the deep vulnerabilities within their independent global networks. At the center of this gathering storm is Prince Harry, who faces unprecedented pressure regarding his role with African Parks, a highly prominent conservation charity operating across the African continent. The organization has become embroiled in persistent, deeply disturbing allegations of violence, systemic abuse, and serious human rights violations reportedly committed by its armed rangers against indigenous populations living near the protected conservation areas. These heavy accusations, which include documented reports of rape, physical torture, and arbitrary detentions, have triggered a massive wave of global outrage and led to urgent, widespread calls for the prince to immediately step down from his leadership position within the charity. The controversy is particularly damaging because African Parks had previously initiated an independent investigation into these matters around 2025. which ultimately forced the organization to admit in an official statement that certain rangers had indeed engaged in highly inappropriate and potentially criminal behavior. However, the charity has steadfastly refused to disclose the full extent of the investigators' findings, creating an atmosphere of secrecy and a severe lack of transparency that has further infuriated human rights advocates and international observers. Critics argue that by maintaining his high-profile association with the group, the prince is inadvertently providing vital public credibility and a protective shield to an administration that refuses to implement fundamental leadership changes or hold wrongdoers fully accountable. This crisis does not exist in a vacuum, but rather follows a troubling pattern of institutional friction, echoing his previous abrupt departure from another prominent charitable organization known as Centerbail. Legal documents and internal paperwork from ongoing disputes reveal that Centerbail has actively pushed back against the prince, with certain factions even initiating legal action, while alleging that his increasingly controversial public profile represents a toxic brand that actively harms the financial stability and operational success of the charities he supports. At the exact same time, across the Atlantic in Scottsdale, Arizona, the contrast between these serious human rights crises and the ultra-exclusive world of high society fundraising became glaringly obvious. Despite the mounting global outcry, Prince Harry recently attended a private high-dollar conservation at scale fundraising event in the wealthy Arizona desert. An appearance that many critics labeled as entirely tone-deaf, given the horrific nature of the allegations unfolding on the ground in Africa. This stark juxtaposition between luxury fundraising in the American West and systemic violence in distant conservation zones has intensified the debate over whether modern celebrity activists are truly connected to the causes they claim to champion. Meanwhile, the broader royal family network faces an entirely separate, yet equally devastating reputational crisis regarding Prince Andrew, whose long-standing connection to the late disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein has found its way back into the headlines with renewed ferocity. New, highly specific claims have emerged from Epstein's former personal assistant, who has come forward with detailed accounts alleging that Prince Andrew invited her directly to his private residence under deeply suspicious circumstances. This fresh testimony has reignited the fury surrounding the Duke of York's historical conduct, forcing a cynical public to once again confront the disturbing reality of his past associations and the immense societal protection he enjoyed for decades. The latest disclosures have led royal commentators and the general public to express a sense of profound exhaustion and disgust, noting that the depth of the scandal seems to worsen with every passing year. The conversation has also brought about a poignant retrospective appreciation for figures like Virginia Giuffre, whose immense personal sacrifice and willingness to go on the official record with her specific allegations stand in sharp contrast to the numerous unnamed individuals who have felt compelled to remain hidden behind the protective veil of legal anonymity. This continuous stream of revelations has forced a painful national reckoning regarding how much the traditional monarchy, the surrounding state institutions, and individual family members actually knew about the Duke's behavior over the years, with many accusing the establishment of turning a blind eye to obvious misconduct for the sake of preserving institutional appearances. As these twin crises of accountability threaten to overwhelm the male figures of the extended family, Meghan Markle finds herself navigating her own fierce storm of public criticism centered on her newly launched commercial lifestyle brand. The Duchess of Sussex has come under intense fire from traditionalists and media critics who claim that her business model is forced to rely almost entirely on the continuous exposure of her young children, Archie and Lilibet, to remain financially viable and retain public relevance. The criticism turned into an outright charge of hypocrisy following a highly publicized campaign led by the Duchess that focused heavily on protecting children from the inherent dangers of digital media and online platforms. Merely days after fronting this well-intentioned initiative, the couple allowed fresh, intimate family imagery of their children to be distributed across global media networks. A move that critics slammed as a blatant contradiction and a calculated attempt to use their children as commercial assets to market consumer products. This operational strategy has drawn fierce comparisons to Prince Harry's previous environmental initiative, Travelist, which was launched with great fanfare to help travelers minimize their global carbon footprint. Even as the prince himself faced continuous exposure for his frequent reliance on private aviation. The accumulation of these incidents has led a growing segment of the international audience to view the couple not as genuine and altruistic activists, but as highly transactional pay-for-play operators who seamlessly hop from one trending social cause to another, based entirely on financial incentives and public relations advantages. 10 years after their relationship first captured the world's imagination, a profound sense of disillusionment has taken root, with observers openly questioning the core values, moral consistency, and true motivations of a couple that appears increasingly disconnected from the day-to-day realities of the public they seek to influence. The unfolding situation paints a vivid picture of a brand in deep crisis, where the romantic allure of a historic royal departure has been entirely replaced by the gritty, unglamorous realities of commercial survival, legal battles, and a devastating loss of public trust that shows absolutely no signs of slowing down as the global media continues its relentless pursuit of the truth. The long-term implications of these overlapping controversies extend far beyond the immediate news cycle, signaling a permanent shift in how the global public views institutional privilege, independent celebrity activism, and the true meaning of accountability. To fully appreciate why these developments matter, one must look at the structural breakdown of trust occurring between these prominent figures and the societies they inhabit. A breakdown that threatens to relegate once revered names to the status of cautionary tales in the history of modern public relations. The situation with African parks, for instance, touches on a deeply sensitive global debate regarding neo-colonial conservation practices, where Western-led charities wield immense power in developing nations, often at the direct expense of indigenous communities who find their ancestral lands policed by heavily armed, poorly supervised ranger forces. Prince Harry's refusal to immediately sever ties with this organization, despite its own admissions of operational wrongdoing and potential criminality, highlights a broader systemic failure within contemporary celebrity philanthropy, where high-profile figures prioritize institutional loyalty and elite networking over the raw, uncomfortable realities of human rights enforcement. This lack of decisive action gives fuel to critics who argue that modern royal activism is inherently superficial, designed more to polish a personal brand at exclusive desert fundraisers than to execute real, structural oversight on the ground where the actual suffering occurs. The ongoing fallout from his previous charity involvement only compounds this view, illustrating that when the glamorous illusion of royal endorsement fades, what remains is a trail of legal disputes, financial anxieties, and a growing consensus that certain public figures have become too controversial for the very causes they claim to champion. The damage to these charitable institutions is profound, as grassroots donors and international partners begin to question whether associating with an increasingly toxic brand is worth the risk to their own hard-earned reputations and operational missions. At the same time, the dark, unyielding cloud over Prince Andrew continues to expose the deep cultural fractures within the traditional monarchy itself. serving as a constant reminder of the immense mechanisms historically deployed to shield powerful individuals from the legal consequences of their actions. The emergence of fresh, corroborating accounts from historical eyewitnesses ensures that this scandal can never truly be buried, forcing a reluctant establishment to repeatedly confront its own complicity and its long-standing habit of turning a blind eye to obvious moral failures for the sake of preserving a pristine public image. This ongoing reckoning is not just about the actions of one disgraced individual, but about the systemic vulnerability of an ancient house that has historically struggled to balance its claims of divine duty with the messy human realities of modern legal and ethical standards. The public exhaustion surrounding these repetitive disclosures reflects a broader demand for absolute transparency, a clear signal that the modern world will no longer accept the protective veil of royal anonymity or the dismissal of serious allegations as mere historical anomalies. This cultural shift is precisely why the legacy of those who fought to bring these truths to light remains so vital, serving as a benchmark for public bravery against entrenched institutional power. As the traditional and non-traditional branches of this extended family tree continue to falter under the weight of their respective crises, the focus inevitably returns to the highly commercialized lifestyle ventures defining the next chapter of this global narrative. The intense scrutiny facing the Duchess of Sussex's new business ventures reveals a profound cultural skepticism toward commercial models that attempt to commodify personal morality, family intimacy, and social activism simultaneously. By positioning themselves as global leaders on digital safety and child protection, while concurrently utilizing intimate family imagery to maintain corporate relevance and drive commercial success. The couple has created an unsustainable paradox that modern media consumerism is uniquely equipped to dismantle. This glaring gap between public preaching and private practice has alienated even moderate observers, transforming what could have been a successful independent transition into a case study of reputational mismanagement. The continuous pattern of pursuing environmentally conscious initiatives while maintaining lifestyle habits that directly contradict those values has solidified a public perception of deep-seated entitlement, an impression that no amount of polished public relations can easily erase. The realization that these prominent figures may be operating as transactional, market-driven actors rather than genuine agents of social change has led to a profound reassessment of the entire concept of celebrity activism in the 21st century. The global audience has become highly sophisticated, possessing the digital tools and collective skepticisms necessary to rapidly identify inconsistencies, call out perceived hypocrisy, and reject brands that offer empty rhetoric in place of genuine, sacrificial commitment. A full decade after this historic journey began, the romantic idealism that once captivated millions has evaporated completely, replaced by a cold, objective analysis of a commercial operation struggling to maintain its footing in a market that demands absolute authenticity. The story of these individuals is no longer a fairy tale of escape and self-actualization, but a complex, ongoing drama about the high cost of fame, the heavy burden of institutional history, and the inescapable reality that true public respect can never be purchased, manufactured, or maintained through public relations strategy alone. As these parallel narratives of institutional failure, commercial desperation, and moral compromise reach their natural conclusion, they leave behind a permanently altered media landscape.